This video is designed so you can practice anytime, anywhere, whether you're walking, driving, or relaxing at home. Consistency is key. Shadow the same video at least 5 to 6 times over a couple of days before moving on to the next one. Here's how it works. You will first listen to the speaker, then there will be a pause for you to repeat. Try to match the speaker's pace and pronunciation. Please leave any requests for different accents, topics, or levels for shadowing practice in the comments. If you want to support the channel and help it grow, hit like and subscribe buttons. Let's start. When founders begin a fundraising journey, they often assume that investors will understand the potential of their product as soon as they hear the pitch. Yet the reality is far more complex. Most investors evaluate dozens of companies every week. And they won't remember your idea unless you present it in a way that connects to a deeper strategic narrative. I learned this the hard way. When I walked into my first investor meeting, without preparing for the questions they were most likely to ask. At the time, I believed my traction numbers would speak for themselves. Although I knew the market was extremely competitive. However, when the investors started challenging my assumptions, I realized that my pitch lacked clarity. They asked about customer acquisition costs, retention, and distribution advantages, and I found myself explaining things while I was still trying to structure my thoughts. Even though they were polite throughout the meeting, it was clear that I had not delivered the level of insight they expected. Because I wanted to understand how successful founders handled these situations, I began studying pitch recordings, financial models, and Q&A breakdowns. I watched how strong founders navigated tough questions, even when the investors interrupted them. And I noticed that they always returned to a core message. They did this so that the conversation never drifted away from the company's strategic advantage. Once I understood that pattern, I rewrote my entire pitch. Instead of listing features, I highlighted the problem with market data explained why existing solutions failed, and clarified why our product worked better because it removed key friction points for users. Although it took several weeks to refine the narrative, the results were visible immediately. The next time I pitched, investors leaned forward. As soon as I began describing the shift in user behavior, since it directly supported our value proposition. After I showed them how our early adopters behaved, they asked deeper questions. Not to challenge the idea, but to explore how big the opportunity could become. Even when they pushed back on certain assumptions, it felt collaborative rather than confrontational. Still, fundraising isn't only about storytelling. Investors want to see discipline, because capital becomes a liability if it's not used wisely. For that reason, I prepared a detailed operating plan that explained how the team would allocate funds so that we could scale without losing efficiency. I also built a sensitivity analysis in case revenue grew slower than projected, and included a scenario plan demonstrating how we would extend runway if market conditions deteriorated. This level of preparation helped build trust even before investors reviewed the financial details. Of course, not every meeting ended positively. Some investors declined immediately, although they praised the product, simply because it didn't fit their fund thesis. Others asked us to return after we reached a stronger revenue baseline, which made sense given their stage focus. I learned to view these rejections as data points, since they highlighted which investors were most likely to support our vision. While I continued refining the pitch, I also improved my investor targeting. Instead of sending cold emails randomly, I built a list of funds that had recently invested in similar sectors. I contacted founders who had raised from those funds, and they shared insights that I wouldn't have found online. Many of them were honest about the challenges they faced when negotiating terms, and they explained how they protected their cap table so that they didn't lose control as the company grew. This advice shaped my negotiation strategy. Whenever an investor proposed a structure that felt misaligned, I explained the long-term consequences calmly. And even if the meeting felt tense, maintaining transparency often improved the relationship, because investors appreciated clear thinking. Eventually, this approach led to a term sheet that aligned with both our growth plans and our values. Once the round closed, the real work began. Fundraising can feel like a huge milestone, but the momentum disappears quickly unless the team executes effectively. I set weekly targets for product growth and operations, and I reviewed our burn rate carefully so that we didn't drift off track. Although the pressure increased after we raised capital, the clarity of having a focused plan made execution easier. In the end, fundraising teaches you that capital flows toward teams that communicate clearly, execute consistently, and adjust quickly when the market shifts. And although the process feels uncertain while you are navigating it, each conversation helps you understand how to position your company more effectively.